Hi, this video is to support you with solving quadratics, and today we're going to solve quadratics using completing the square. Now last week we completed the square for expressions, and we're going to use that same method to solve equations. So just like all quadratic equations, we need to make sure it's equal to 0, and then in this case it is, so we can start. And let's have a look at this particular question. So it says find the exact solutions to the equation x squared minus 4x plus 1 equals 0 by completing the square. Now there are a lot of keywords here, but the two most important at the minute are exact solutions. And what that means is we don't want our answers to be decimals at the end. We want our answers to be exact, and that usually means leaving your answer in the form of a surd. Okay, and we're going to use completing the square to do that. Now, when we complete the square last week, we want to change our expression so it factorizes into the form of into the form of x plus a squared plus b. So this is the complete the square form. Now this a comes from the coefficient of x being halved. So our a is going to be minus 2 for this equation. And that's the first step. Okay, half the coefficient of x to give you a. Now that will give us the first part of our complete the square. So here's our original equation. And we're going to change the a now to minus 2, and all of that is squared. Now the second step is to subtract a squared from the bracket. Now the reason we do that, just as a quick reminder from last week, if we have just got x minus 2 squared, when we expand this double bracket, so remember it's x minus 2, x minus 2, and when it's all expanded and simplified, you get x squared minus 4x plus 4. Now this plus 4 comes from the minus 2 being squared. Okay, now we want x squared minus 4x, but we don't want this plus 4 at the end. So we want this bit, so this is the bit we do want, but we don't want that a squared. So that's where we're going to subtract negative 2 squared from our bracket. What we do want is plus 1. So I'm going to add the plus 1 back on the end. So we subtract a squared, and then 3, add back the constant. So that plus 1 is the constant in the equation. And it's all still equal to 0. And now we tidy up. So I'm going to simplify the expression, keeping the bracket in. So negative 2 squared is 4. So I know that's 4. Okay, so negative 4 add 1 takes me to negative 3 equals 0. Okay, and that's the completing the square part done. So that's step 4, simplify and tidy it up. Now we're going to solve. So some people might find this counterintuitive, putting brackets back into an expression when we're trying to solve it to work out x. But by factorizing and completing a square, it allows us to simplify what's going on. So this whole section here, x minus 2 all squared, all of this subtract 3 has to equal 0. So that means all of this bracket has got to be equal to 3, because the only way of making 0 is by doing 3 subtract 3, which is equal to 0. Okay, so what I'm doing now is rearranging. So this is where the solving happens, and we rearrange our expression at the minute. And I'm going to rearrange to make x the subject. So I've just done the first step. And in theory, ignoring this bit in the middle, what I've actually done to get from here to here is add 3 to both sides, because we're rearranging. Okay, now once we get to there, I'm now left with a bracket squared equal to 3, so I'm going to get rid of this bracket by doing the inverse of squaring, which is the square root, and I'm going to square root both sides of my equation. So now I'll have x minus 2 equals the square root of 3. Now, if you remember from last week when we did the quadratic formula, remember when you square root a number, for example 9, there isn't just one answer. You get a positive answer, so positive 3, and negative 3. And the same applies here. Even though this isn't a square number, when I square root 3, the answer of that will be a positive answer and a negative answer. So in order to show that, we use a plus and a minus sign to show the positive and the negative. So I'm still trying to rearrange and make x the subject. Now I want to do the inverse of subtracting 2. So I'm going to add 2. To both sides. So this will cancel, make it 0. X equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. Now, I can't get an integer answer or whole number answer, because when you square root 3, it will be a decimal. But the question's asking us to leave it in exact solutions. So I've already got a surd, and it's completely fine. And that is my final answer. So for this equation, my final answer is going to be x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. I hope this video helps. Use this to help you and try the knowledge organizer. Thank you.